Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Oh my gosh, I think this is the last Monday in July of 2025. Excited to be with you today. I've got a special guest who I'm excited to have this conversation with. And we're talking about parenting a child with special needs. And so I'm excited about that. But before we get too wrapped up in that space, I want to remind you to grab your copy of Raising the Well-Adjusted Child, a Parent's Manual. And we'll talk more about this as we get into other conversations today, but also check that book out. It's available on Amazon for you. All right. Hey. Oh my gosh, this is so fun. I'm excited to introduce to you Erica Spring. Hi,
Hello.
Erica.
Hi, Dr. Tanya. Happy
How are you?
Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday. It is a Monday for sure, right?
Yes, we might have added some new white hair to the crown. Yeah.
I know. It's been a busy day, a very busy day so far. So tell everybody, give everyone a brief introduction of who you are. What do you do?
Yes. Well, first of all, I am a mom. I have two kiddos. My son is 15 and my daughter's 10. I'm also a wife. I'm also a therapist. I own my own practice, and I specialize in PTSD and complex PTSD and use EMDR as one of my main modalities. I like writing. I like spending time doing fun things like music. And did I mention writing? I really like that stuff. And of course, spending time with my kids, right?
Yeah, that is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we were introduced by a mutual friend, Dr. Qureshi, and we've been able to do some lives. So those of you that are watching and maybe are following the YouTube channel, you'll be able to go in and see some of our other lives from the YouTube channel that we started doing. We were talking about maternal and paternal health together. So we had 2 episodes of going into maternal and paternal health. So it's been great to get to know you. And then we both realized that we have children who have special needs and thought that this might be a really good topic to talk about. It's not a topic that I've brought on this channel yet, but definitely want to have this conversation today. So those of you that are in the audience, please drop in where you are from. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Please share it out to other people who may have children with special needs or they have them themselves and, would like to be a part of this conversation and, put in information in the comments. We would absolutely love that. So thank you so much. Thank you, Jackie, for being here tonight. I appreciate you. Those of you that are on YouTube, I don't get to see necessarily your comments until they're after it's over. So if I'm missing something, I apologize. So tell me, why is this topic important to you, Erica?
Well, I think it started early on in my life when I was a young clinician. I focused on children, and I was very much into community mental health, working with children who were disadvantaged. And when I became a mother, I didn't necessarily know that I was going to be a special needs parent. I, like many other moms, expected I was going to gestate and it was going to be magical and I was going to be glowing. And I was far from glowing. I was usually in the bathroom at some point all day, every day. Yeah. And when I brought my son home, I thought, okay, we've done it right. We've got the mom, we've got the dad, we've got the house. We even have the dog. I had a little penny Shih Tzu. I had it all. And my son, well, he started showing some different developmental signals. And being a clinician before I was his mom, I started seeing things. Now, other people were saying, well, he's a boy and boys are different and you're a new mom and you have anxiety and you're with them all day. You need to get out more. You need to, right?
Yeah.
So finally, had many talks with our pediatrician. And when he was about 18 months old, that was when he had his first diagnosis of having not a receptive, an expressive speech delay. He was speaking, I didn't understand him.
Mm-hmm.
And We knew that his receptive language was very on point. You could tell him, go get the book, and he could follow that instruction. We were having frequent meltdowns, tantrums, then began the head banging.
Hmm.
It was devastating. I mean, devastating with a capital D. We could not soothe him, and it was becoming challenging to keep him safe. He absconded.
Mm.
And luckily, we live in a nice suburb.
Yes.
So eventually came the diagnosis of pervasive developmental delay, which now we've encapsulated in spectrum disorder.
Sure.
And later on came ADHD. Later on came some vestibular stuff with balance. And so that is my first child. And all of that really just summarizes that I had an idea that something was wrong, and not a lot of people necessarily were validating that experience. So there was a lot of real gaslighting going on,
Sure.
right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
This goes in direct opposite of my daughter, who is also special needs. So we did some genetics testing because we were a little bit older with her, and we found out that she had cystic fibrosis at 20 weeks gestation, which is pretty unique. Most people wait. It's a very common within Caucasian people. It's the most common genetic defect that we all will carry. And most people who find out about their child having cystic fibrosis, it's in the postpartum period when they do the blood draw and they check for all of the things. So we knew before she was ever on the outside that she was coming in different. And that different was really devastating
Mhm.
because cystic fibrosis at that time had no real treatment.
Correct.
The average lifespan of a child at that time would be somewhere around the age of 35 to 37. And so
Mhm.
for us, that was not acceptable because we definitely plan for our children to outlive us, not the other way around. And
Sure.
so I have two children with special needs, very different needs, as all children do. And what about you?
Yeah. Right. Well, you made as soon as you started talking about your son, you made me really think about what I was going to say because I, my experience was a little bit different, which it always is for every parent. Everyone thinks that their story is the same. It's not. Every story is a little bit different. And my daughter. My youngest daughter was 10 years old before we discovered that she was having any type of issues with epilepsy. We had no idea. We had never heard of epilepsy. It had never been in our family. It's not a genetic disease. It's never been, they don't really have a rhyme or reason for it. Oftentimes it's a really, they don't know a lot about it, to be honest with you. And so, unfortunately, when my daughter started having seizures, we didn't really know what to look for. Now, I'm an educator, and then this is interesting because we never really saw them. She was 10 years old, and she was telling us stories of things that were happening in school, like that she missed pieces of time, that she was missing what the teacher was saying, that she doesn't remember carrying her lunch tray from the lunchroom she carried it to the classroom and said, why did I have my lunch tray with me? And I'm chalking it up to things like, you're distracted. She's chatty. She's got her friends. She's the social butterfly. You're not paying attention. What do you look, because I'm an educator, right? So I'm always usually siding with the teacher and saying, what were you doing? Why weren't you listening? Were you out of were you not following directions? And then we started having more extreme things happening at home, and things that we noticed with the eyes and the look, and we would take her to the doctor, but unless you're having an active seizure in front of a medical professional, they don't give you anything for it. They do nothing for you for that point in time. And it was really scary and really hard until the day and I remember her coming into my bathroom, and I remember seeing her in an active seizure, and I thought, I know what this is. So then I
Mm,
took her to the doctor, and the doctor was able to say, okay, but what if she only has this one? What if she doesn't ever have like you kind of have to go through and really push. And I really had to get her to the hospital. She started, I mean, almost gratefully, she started having cluster seizures, and we took her to the emergency room. They finally had one in front of them, and then was
mm,
transported to Children's Hospital to be able to get medications. And then the whole other story. But so to not know, and I don't like using the term normal. I had a
mm.
normal child until this age, because I don't think that anyone is normal. I don't know what normal really is. And so I feel like, my children are both different. They both learn differently. They both live differently. They both have different senses of humor. They both have completely different styles, which is what I love about them. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I had one normal that wasn't, but it's just, you went from having, let's say, no health concern or need to having a need.
Yes.
And yes, the same. If you want to go down a rabbit hole of things of what could happen or would happen, it can be very devastating and
It
scary.
can be. And I think that I know for my husband and I, it was something that we needed to grieve. And I do use that word intentionally.
Sure.
We needed time to grieve the life that we thought we were going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't mean that we were any less grateful to be their parents. And of course, when from the time you're a little girl and you're a teenager and you're in your 20s and you're going through college, one just assumes that one is going to be randomly assigned a perfect child.
Right.
And the grief definitely involved, what did we do?
Mm-hmm.
What did we do? Did we cause this? Did I eat something? Did I drink something? With my son, I didn't necessarily know that I was pregnant. He was kind of a surprise. And so I was every single minute of everything. And then, of course, I'm sure a good percentage of these humans are very well-meaning, and they would say things like, well, there's a purpose, there's a reason. Okay, well, what is it? Can you let me know?
Right. Right.
I also remember several family members, and I do pray. And I remember telling people about my daughter's diagnosis while I was still pregnant, and a couple of people saying, well, we will just pray that just never happens. And I'm like, it's already happened. Like, she's created. That's her. It's
Mm-hmm.
every single
Mm-hmm.
cell of her body. And so I'm going to keep praying. And I am not delusional. All right. I trust my medical team. I look at those genetics. Those genetics
Sure.
are doing something. And so I say all of that because if anybody is out there trying to support somebody who just found out a terrible diagnosis, please don't say that there's a reason. Okay.
Right. Yes. It is true. It is true. It can happen to any of us. And we don't know. And I have children. Okay. I have adult children.
Mm.
And my adult children want to have children eventually, and they are living their life right now. And they both will have probably children at different times in their life. They're not, again, my girls are very different from one another. And I do always tell them, you need to enjoy where you're at right now, because I think a lot of times we look as parents like, when I'm going to have a baby? When am I going to have a baby? Okay, why don't you enjoy this moment? Because your life is going to change. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what, and there is everything in the spectrum that you're going to experience as a parent. So, we use the term special needs because maybe our child needed a 504 or an IEP, or they need special medical treatment. That's where the kind of terms of special needs is. But also in that realm, we've got children who are depressed, children with anxiety. We have children that are not motivated. We have children who, are impulsive. We have children that are hyperactive. We have children with attention deficit, and that is pretty much, I don't know where you're going to find a child who's not going to have something along
Yes.
the line. So you don't know what you're getting, you know what I mean? And that is life. That is life. Now,
Yes.
the beauty of this whole thing is there are people like you. And I'm going to say people like me. I'm an educator, and when a parent comes to me with a concern about a child and they need help in the school system, I am there to help them. And there are
Mhm.
help for children and parents through school systems. And then we have therapists. And
Sure.
so, like, how do you help families and children with special needs? Like, have they come to your door? Do you work with
Absolutely.
them?
Every day. Every day. And the beginning of the career, it was certainly centered around the child. I mean, the diagnostics were that so that they were coming to me for a reason, or rather back then I was going to them for a reason. I did in-home case management and in-home
Oh,
therapy for
okay.
years
Yeah.
because some of these children don't necessarily come to the office
Hmm.
because they can't.
Hmm.
Or because mom maybe has 4 other children and there's no childcare. And
Hmm.
so I'm big on accessibility because one of the most disturbing data points that I will point out is that when you have a child with a disability, not only is it going to take a hit on your marriage, these things end up in 50-50 divorce, we know this, it increases the likelihood that this child is going to be abused or neglected
Mm.
because parents are not trained and our society does not sustain them with any reasonable resources. And
Mhm.
so, one of the passionate things about my practice is if you can't come to me, I'm going to come to you because the last thing that we should do is ever isolate these people.
Right.
I believe firmly in that. And so, the first part was certainly just being in the home with them, watching them do life.
Hmm.
Um, Watching the tantrums, watching the behaviors, and supporting the parent right in the moment while not only saying we're going to get through this, but regulating the parent,
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
just holding their hands quite literally,
Sure.
and then building that trust up enough to let me begin to intervene
Hmm.
and let that child grow some kind of relationship with me that then says, okay, we're here with Erica. What are we going to do today? What are we working on? Okay, we're doing deep breathing because I see you're really dysregulated,
Hmm.
right? So, a lot of mindfulness, a lot of stuff that would be brought down from dialectical behavior therapy, which shouldn't necessarily be a therapy, but really a lifestyle because it teaches us things like interpersonal effectiveness, distress regulation, distress tolerance, okay? Because all of us deal with distress. And so those early years were spent certainly doing a lot of what I would consider skills work, regulation, but also psychoeducation. And when you mentioned, the education part, I'm that weird therapist that will be at your school.
Hmm.
I'm part of the 504 team. I'm part of the IEP
Sure.
team, happily, because for children, they don't just exist at home. They exist within systems. And so if I'm on high and they're over here, well, how are we doing coordination of care? We're not.
Mhm.
So we all work together to hopefully surround this family with all levels of support to bring this thing home, right? Now, certainly in my later practicing years, one of the ways that I work with them is I do work with more adults now. So I have parents coming in that are saying, my child is getting ready to age out of the system and I don't know how to support them and I don't have enough money,
Right.
or I'm traumatized by watching various medical procedures that I've seen my child endure. The
Hmm.
sleepless nights of not knowing what's going to happen next. So, quite literally, working with the trauma that can happen as a result of having these children. When my daughter was born, they had a team for her and they immediately took her, and my sweet 1 hour old child had a PICC line placed directly in her heart. And my
Hmm.
husband had to witness that. And he still says to this day, like he can take anything but the powerlessness of watching what was happening to her tiny little body. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of us don't even get the airtime to
Yeah.
say out loud that we have endured some things that we would wish away and not ever be able to remember.
I want to pause right there because I feel like this is a really important piece that I wanted to bring out. Um, and I'm sure you have this with other parents that you've met with of children that have cystic fibrosis, or you have other parents of children who have speech needs that you're seeing the frustration come out in other ways from that. The same with parents of epilepsy. You can say my child has epilepsy and active seizures, and you can see the look in their face, the fear in their face is the same fear that you hold inside your heart, and you know that. And I think it's so important to understand that part of this parent to parent program that I'm building, this network, is for us to be a support to one another, so that we are not alone in this. And it is a heavy topic. And when we picked this topic, Eric and I knew this was not going to be the lighthearted summer slide, teach your kids how to read, be engaged. This is a part of a reality piece. And I'm so glad that you talked about trauma for the parent. I remember a scenario situation with my daughter, and she had an active seizure while driving her car at highway speed. She was medicated, had permission to drive, everything. We were following every rule that there was, but it happened. And we were called to the trauma unit of the hospital. And my older daughter was with me, and I was making decisions, boom, 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 ordering this here, who, da, 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 right? And I remember my daughter saying to me, "How are you doing this? I can't even think." And I said, and then this was me at this moment, I'm in mom mode. I will break down later. I am in mom mode.
Great.
And that your husband was in dad mode. He had to force himself to handle that moment. And I'm so glad that you brought up the trauma piece that comes from it, because those are things in our hearts and in our minds that are hard to let go. Hence why therapy is so important. And I want to bring you back to this, because while we're talking about our own personal feelings and our own personal emotions, therapy got me through a lot with my daughter at a very young age, from 10 years old of her diagnoses to being able to understand, and who do I talk to, and who do I talk to, and how do I manage this, and when do I break down, and how do I break down, because I want to break down now, but I can't, because I just can't right now. But I know I need this release. So how do I do this? And so, kudos to you. And I know that you do this because you love your children and you love your job, but it's hard. Like, you're dealing with a lot of life at home, and then you're dealing with a lot of other people's energy and helping them.
Truly. And I appreciate that. And I think this is one thing that I will say. My training, my education, and my experiences before having my children did help prepare me. I figured out systems that I wouldn't have otherwise. I was a powerful advocate for my clients in the community, and it made me a bulldog. The kids will laugh and say, in our very Midwestern culture, well, my dad will get you, and my kids say, it's my mom. Yeah, I mean, don't worry about that one right there. And when you said that question, when people ask you that and they say, how are you doing this? My answer has always been, do you think that there's another choice?
Correct. Yes.
Like what is the alternative? And I realize that for some people the alternative is I give up, and some people tap out and some people disengage. But I think for the parent who is truly on the ground, truly in the moment, truly connected to their child, to their reality, you switch into a gear and you do what you gotta do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You do. You switch into a gear and you do what you got to do. That's very, very well said. Very well said. Um, and so as we are 5 minutes left, I knew this was going to fly by. I knew this was going to
No.
fly by. And we've talked about the emotions and the trauma and helping support kids. And I definitely think we can come back and revisit this conversation and add another layer to it, because I think there's so many families, as I just said, who are experiencing something with their kids that could be categorized under special needs, for sure.
Absolutely.
So like, what is your best advice for a parent of a child with special needs? Like,
Wow.
just like, and I know that you can probably target it to somebody, but best advice that you would give a parent with special needs.
I would say, first of all, you are the expert of your child.
Hmm.
Okay. We all have some really great education, some great letters before and after our names, and no one knows your child like you do from the inside out. I
Oh
can
my
look I can look at my child and know that they are sick 2 days before they are sick.
God. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the tone of their voice, it's the glaze of the eyes, right? And so never let anybody tell you anything about your child that you don't already know.
Yeah.
I also encourage people to connect, as you said. And as we have spoken with Dr. Qureshi, it takes a village, right?
Mhm.
You must build your village, and not all village people are worthy of being there. That sometimes is challenging to say. There are people who started this journey with me who are no longer part of the village because they were not part of the plan. And there are unexpected people that come into your life at the most strange time and suddenly become your go-to person. And so please don't isolate. When you do feel that guilt and you say, "What did I do?" I encourage you to lead yourself with the grace that you might give somebody that you really care about.
I love that. Hmm.
And just love your kid, man. Just love your kid. Just love them.
We're talking about us this whole time,
Yes.
but our kids are the ones that are going through it.
Yeah.
It was your daughter that had the PIC line put in. It was your son that was frustrated. It was my daughter that hit a tree beyond her control. I mean,
Yes.
and what they're going through, right? Just love them for who they are, give them that hug, tell them you love them, spend time with them. Like, there's so much to it. And, I think there are things, and we should probably come back to this and revisit it, but as children age and you're able to handle more, I think it's okay for you to say, I was scared in that moment. I was worried about you. I was
Yes.
sad. I hurt when that happened to you,
Yes.
and let them know. I mean, when they hear those things, they know how much you really care and you love them, and it's tough sometimes. And oh my gosh, there's so many things I want to talk about, but
I
we are
know.
already running out of time. So I want to just take a quick moment. If everybody doesn't mind, I'm going to go ahead and just encourage you to follow my Parent2Parent YouTube channel. I think it's Parent2Parent Talks. You can see the link here. And join us for this channel. We've got live streams that happen all of the time. This is the one we're currently in. We've got other live streams that are set to go that are coming soon. And so we've got those coming. I've got many videos on my book, Raising the Well-Adjusted Child, a Parent's Manual. So I'm reading chapters of my book in here and sections and talking to you about that. I've got lots of great little shorts that are out that'll tell you little tips and different things that you can do with your kids. So check out my Parent2Parent channel. You can also check out my Creative Living Ideas website, and you can go to the Parent2Parent page and you can learn about the book study that I have on Parent2Parent. If you'd like to be a part of the book study, it's just a fun time for parents to get together. Go ahead and fill this out and I'll give you the information on our next dates. So excited to be able to share that with everybody. And always, you can always reach out to me and send me an email and connect with me and let me know what your questions are, what topics you'd like to see on the show. All right. So, Erica, how can people get in touch with you?
People can get in touch with me. I have my website. It's Therapy with Erica Spring at business.blog, and of course, LinkedIn. I am hoping soon, when I find all of that extra hours in the day that they keep on hiding from me, to be like one of my heroes, Dr. Tanya, and have my own little series. I've got some ideas in mind. And so hopefully very soon you will see a lot more of me.
Yay. We'll have you back for sure. Tell
Please
me one
do.
more thing. What is your favorite book to read to your children?
I have to say that each child has their own one. My son was if you read any of the little readers, the golden readers, he was a fan of that. And we did Pokey Little Puppy a lot. And my daughter loved what the coconut tree. Why
Chicka
am I
chicka
going?
boom
Chicka
boom.
chicka boom
Chicka
boom.
chicka boom
Oh my
boom.
goodness.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
That was it. And both of them could recite each one. That's how much they just loved those stories.
I love that. I love that so much. Amazing. All right. I pulled out an old one for my kids one time, The Monster at the End of the Book. Have you ever read that one with Grover, right? So that was one of my kids' favorite. I
That's
think I pulled that out
great.
of a box that I had of mine. So you can still
Yeah.
purchase it, I think, now. Well, thank you, Erica, so much for joining us today. Stick around to the end. I want to talk to you for a minute. But everybody else, have a great evening and catch up with us soon. Bye now.
Bye.